going all the way back to our very first election in 1789 with George Washington, who became our first president. Now in 1789, there really wasn't any parties, there certainly wasn't Democrats and Republicans, and therefore you didn't really have a whole lot of campaigns to try to convince you who to vote for. Plus, no one wanted to run against George Washington because everyone loved him. He was a national hero who had just won the Revolutionary War, and he won by unanimous decision. However, this was early America, and there were some stipulations. So you couldn't just vote for George Washington unless you fit under 10 rules which restricted you and most of the population from being able to vote. In fact, only about 6% of the population of the United States then was even able to vote for George Washington. So let's get into those 10 rules. Number 1, you had to be white. You could not be any other color. You had to be white to be able to vote. Number 2, you had to be a male. You didn't have the choices back then that you have today. You couldn't vote for a female candidate for president or for any other office, and you definitely couldn't vote if you were a female. So only, so far, white men. Number 3, you had to be at least 21 years old. You could not be any younger. So today, you can be 18 and go vote. Back then, not so much. Number 4, you had to own property. If you weren't a white male who was 21 years old or older and didn't own property, you couldn't vote. Owning property was a huge status statement, and that was very important to the voting process. Number 5, you had to be part of an approved religious organization or association, like a church. You had to be part of a group that the federal government recognized as a real valid religion and that they approved of. Number 6, you had to be mentally stable. You couldn't have any kind of mental deficiencies and vote for the president. Number 7, you could not be a convicted felon. If you had committed any crime against the states or the federal government, you could not vote for president. Number 8, you had to be a citizen in the state in which you were voting in, which is the same today. Number 9, you had to be literate in English. You had to be able to speak the English language, write and read the English language. You could not have any other language as your primary language and vote for the president. And number 10, you had to pay the appropriate poll taxes. Back then, it wasn't free. You had to be able to pay to vote.